In a world that demands noise, disappearing can be a radical act, especially when you're queer, famous, and under constant public scrutiny. Today on Rainbow Spotlight, we're spotlighting 5 gay celebrities who once stepped out of the spotlight, silently, slowly, sometimes heartbreakingly, and came back brighter, bolder, and louder than ever. From emotional burnout to identity struggles, their reasons for retreat were real. But their comebacks? Pure power. This episode isn't just about fame, it's about transformation, healing, and the strength it takes to return as your most unapologetic self. Whether it's through music, acting, or simply showing up again, these stories remind us you can lose the stage and still find your voice. Stay with us till the end and drop the number that hit you hardest, and tell us where you're watching from. You're part of this comeback story too. Jonathan Bailey, from private shadows to global queer stardom. Before he became the internet's favorite Bridgerton heartthrob, Jonathan Bailey was a quietly brilliant British actor, respected on stage, loved in industry circles, but never fully in the spotlight. He showed up, did the work, kept his personal life tucked away behind subtle smiles and perfectly tailored suits. But something changed. And when Jonathan came back, he came back louder, prouder, and sharper than ever. For years, Jonathan remained publicly silent about his sexuality, not out of shame, but out of self-preservation. In a now famous interview, he revealed that early in his career, he was directly advised not to come out. There's 2 things we don't want to know: if you're gay or if you're in a relationship. So, like many queer actors before him, Jonathan made a decision. Stay quiet, play the game, build the resume. He took a step back from the kind of celebrity visibility that demanded performance off-screen. Instead, he focused on his craft, earning awards in theater, scene-stealing roles on TV, and the respect of directors across London and New York. And then came Bridgerton. In Season 2, he wasn't just the leading man, he was the story. His portrayal of Anthony Bridgerton was magnetic, emotional, and fiercely vulnerable. Fans across the globe fell in love. But what hit hardest for queer audiences wasn't just the performance, it was who was giving it. Because by then, Jonathan had stepped back in, this time as his full self. He came out publicly in 2021, not with a tweet or press release, but with an honesty that felt like exhale. He said, "I never thought I could be both an actor and openly gay, but it turns out you can be both." Since then, Jonathan has become one of the most visible, powerful, openly gay actors in Hollywood. But his comeback is quiet in its own way. Not performative, never forced. He still protects his private life, still deflects fame with humor. But now, he does it on his terms. And this year, his return to the big screen in Wicked opposite Ariana Grande is already sending queer fans into a frenzy. Playing Fiyero, he brings both swagger and softness, 2 traits he's finally allowed to own, both on-screen and off. Style-wise, he's in his sleek, modern Prince era. Think velvet blazers, pearl rings, perfectly messy hair, and that signature look, half smirk, half softness, that says, "I know exactly who I am now." Jonathan didn't just come back to fame. He came back with ownership, joy, and freedom, and the queer world is better for it. Drop a 1 if Jonathan Bailey's quiet strength reminded you that power doesn't always have to be loud. It just has to be true. Cameron Hawthorn, the country crooner who left in silence and came back. Singing his truth in the world of country music where boots, trucks, and straight love ballads dominate, being openly gay often means walking alone. For Cameron Hawthorn, that walk was quiet. Until it wasn't. Before he went viral in 2019 with the stunningly tender video for Dancing in the Living Room, Cameron had already taken a step back from the limelight. A promising singer-songwriter with a classically handsome look and a voice soaked in nostalgia, he had all the ingredients of a mainstream Nashville star. But something was missing. Behind the scenes, Cameron was living in a kind of creative closet, writing love songs without pronouns, avoiding interviews about his personal life, shaping himself to fit an industry that didn't feel like home. He later said in an interview, "I realized I wasn't telling my stories. I was telling everyone else's." So, he paused. He left LA for a while, took long road trips, wrote without pressure, let the silence stretch long enough to hear his own voice again. Then came the return. In Dancing in the Living Room, Cameron not only came out publicly, he invited us in. The video, featuring two men slow dancing in the soft light of home, wasn't loud or political. It was simple, gentle, real. And for many queer fans, it was revolutionary. Because in a genre where gay love is almost always erased or metaphorized, this was visible intimacy, tenderness without apology. Country blogs called it a risk. Queer media called it a milestone. Cameron just called it necessary. "I didn't want to make a coming-out anthem," he explained. "I just wanted to show what love looks like when no one's watching." His fans responded with overwhelming gratitude. Comments poured in from gay teens in rural towns, older men who'd never seen their love reflected back in this way, and allies who suddenly realized how rare that kind of softness was in country music. Since then, Cameron hasn't just kept singing. He's been building a catalog of queer Americana. Love songs for men, songs about longing, coming home, letting go. And his style? Think classic cowboy meets modern queer romantic. Denim, wide-brimmed hats, soft lighting, and a voice that always sounds like it's singing just for you. His latest EP, Love at First Fight, explores the tension of queer relationships with grace and grit and solidifies him as one of the few openly gay male country artists who's not just present but thriving. Cameron didn't need to storm back into the spotlight. He just opened a door and let his real voice walk in. Drop a 4 if Cameron Hawthorn reminded you that sometimes the bravest thing a queer artist can do is be gentle. Darren Hayes, the voice that went silent, then saved itself. If you were around in the early 2000s, you probably slow danced or sobbed to a Savage Garden song. And front and center of that sound was Darren Hayes, the angel-voiced, sensitive-eyed pop star whose lyrics felt like poetry whispered into the dark. But for all his fame, Darren was never fully present in it. Not really. Behind the love ballads, behind the success, was a man silently unraveling. After years at the top with hits like Truly, Madly, Deeply and I Knew I Loved You, Darren walked away. No major press goodbye, no dramatic exit, just silence. For a decade, he disappeared from the mainstream, releasing music on his own terms, living quietly between London and LA, and wrestling with a storm of identity, trauma, and shame. In interviews much later, Darren shared the truth. I was out, but I wasn't free. I had internalized so much homophobia. Even after coming out, I couldn't love myself. The music industry at the time didn't help. Labels wanted mystery, not visibility. His queerness was softened, coded, or erased altogether. And Darren, gentle, romantic Darren, chose to retreat rather than perform a lie. Then in 2022, everything changed. After more than a decade of quiet, Darren returned with Homosexual, an album title that was, in his words, a middle finger and a love letter. It was bold, electric, unapologetically queer, and bursting with pain, pleasure, and healing. In the opening track, he sings, "I've been hiding in a soft voice too long." The fans? They wept. The critics? They called it his most important work ever. The LGBTQ+ community? They welcomed him back like he never left. His live performances became raw, emotional experiences. Part concert, part therapy, part queer revival tent. In glitter, eyeliner, and heartbreak, Darren Hayes finally let himself be the gay icon he always was, without apology. One viral video from his 2023 tour shows him singing directly to a young gay fan in the front row. The fan cries. Darren kneels, holds his hand, and sings straight through the tears. It wasn't a performance, it was a transfer of courage. Now in his 50s, Darren Hayes isn't chasing charts, he's chasing truth. And somehow his voice sounds more powerful than ever. With a soft Australian accent and eyeliner that glints under stage lights, he told one audience, "This is what freedom sounds like, and I hope you find yours too." Because sometimes the bravest thing a queer artist can do isn't just to come out, it's to come back, with softness, power, and no one left to please but yourself. Drop a 2 if Darren Hayes reminded you that healing has no deadline, and your comeback can start at any age. Jerrod Carmichael. The comedian who disappeared, then came out swinging for years. Jerrod Carmichael was known as one of comedy's sharpest minds, but also one of its quietest. Understated, elusive, dry as desert air, he rarely gave interviews, kept a low profile, and avoided the spotlight even when his star was rising. But when he returned, he didn't just tell jokes, he told the truth. Back in 2014, Jerrod was a breakout force with The Carmichael Show, a sitcom so smart it tackled race, gun violence, and politics without ever raising its voice. But off-screen, he was barely visible. No red carpet overshare, no Instagram thirst traps, just silence and shadows. Then he disappeared for a while. No one knew why. He still performed stand-up here and there, but never leaned into fame, never capitalized on his rising name. The industry buzzed, and Jerrod stayed silent until 2022. He returned with a vengeance and a vulnerability few saw coming. In his Emmy-winning HBO special Rothaniel, Jerrod sat under a single spotlight in a smoky jazz club and said the words that changed everything. "I'm gay." No punchline, no skit, just honesty. The room froze, then exhaled. So did Jerrod. That moment wasn't just a coming out, it was a cultural reset. It sparked debates across comedy circles, black media, queer spaces. People praised his courage, questioned his timing, examined the intersection of masculinity, race, and queerness in ways that comedy had rarely touched. In Rothaniel, he talked about secrets, about carrying shame, about not being close to his mother anymore after telling her the truth, about how even success couldn't shield him from the loneliness of invisibility. "I thought I'd never tell anyone, and now I just said it to all of you." It was raw, still bleeding, and unlike anything anyone expected from a man who once built his brand on being emotionally untouchable. And then he hosted Saturday Night Live. In a crisp white suit, he opened his monologue with, "I'm the least famous host in SNL history, but I'm also the gayest." He had arrived, not as a character, not as a brand, but as himself. And he made it look cool. Since then, Jerrod has embraced his queerness in the way only he could. Dry, witty, intimate, and always unpredictable. He doesn't march in parades, he doesn't post rainbow flags, but he shows up every time as the kind of queer representation that doesn't fit in a box. He made silence powerful and then used it as a launch pad. Drop a 3 if Jerrod Carmichael reminded you that honesty doesn't need volume to shake the world. GoTa Zab Holland, the K-pop idol who risked it all for truth. In a K-pop industry built on perfection, silence, and control, Tae-seob, known globally as Holland, did the unthinkable. He came out as openly gay. On day one, before fame, before safety, before approval. And then he disappeared. When Holland debuted in 2018 with his dreamy single, Neverland, it wasn't just his music that made headlines. It was the kiss, a same-sex kiss in the music video, tender and unapologetic, shown to millions in a country where LGBTQ+ representation is still taboo. He was instantly dubbed the first openly gay K-pop idol, a title that brought global attention and relentless scrutiny. Holland's fan base exploded overnight. Queer fans from Seoul to Sao Paulo rallied behind him. But the industry? Not so kind. He revealed in interviews that no major Korean label would sign him because of his sexuality. He was self-funded, self-managed, and blacklisted from many public broadcasts. After a few indie releases and global praise, Holland went quiet. No tours, no new music, sparse updates, fans feared burnout, or worse, rejection had silenced him. But in 2023, he came roaring back. This time not as the first gay idol, but as an artist, a survivor, a grown man reclaiming his space. His single Number Boy featured sleek visuals, bold fashion, and confident lyrics about being desired, hated, and desired again. He wasn't asking for permission anymore. He told GQ Korea, "At first I was trying to survive. Now I'm trying to live." And he did. Loudly. This year, Holland walked red carpets in Paris in custom Miu Miu and sheer blouses, gave interviews entirely in English to international queer media, and even teased a full-length album for 2025. His aesthetic? High femme meets cyber prince. Think silver chains, kohl-rimmed eyes, iridescent nails, and that gaze. Soft, fierce, unbothered. But it's not just the style. It's the substance. In a recent fan Q&A, someone asked, "Would you do it all again?" He paused, then smiled. "Yes, because even when it hurt, I knew someone needed to see me." That's why Holland matters. Not just because he was first, but because he's still here, still fighting, still choosing himself in an industry that told him not to exist. He may have stepped back, but he came back on fire. Drop a 5 if Holland reminded you that being visible in the face of silence is its own kind of revolution. Fame is loud, but sometimes the bravest thing you can do is go quiet to hear yourself clearly again. Today's 5 stories weren't just about comebacks. They were about healing, about choosing authenticity over applause, about walking away, not to give up, but to grow stronger. Jonathan Bailey reclaimed his voice. Darren Hayes rewrote his pain into poetry. Jerrod Carmichael turned a whisper into a cultural earthquake. Cameron Hawthorn brought gentleness back into country music. And Holland, he lit up the world with truth and kept shining when it tried to turn him off. Their silence wasn't weakness. It was a reset. Their return? That was the revolution. Drop the number of the story that stayed with you the longest and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Because Rainbow Spotlight isn't just about stars. It's about you and us. And the power of showing up again and again, even after the world told you not to. Hit subscribe for more queer stories that matter, that move you, and that never go quietly again.